Hello and welcome to the Winners Found a Way Show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I am the CEO of LEADERSHIPITY, a serial entrepreneur, and I am the author of Leading Winning Teams. Great new book I have out with Wiley. I'm excited about that. Please go pick that up. And of course, I am a longtime entrepreneur in the Entrepreneurs Organization, but probably most people know me because I spent over 13 years coaching in professional baseball and 3 World Series. So today on the Winners Find a Way Show, I welcome my friend and guest, Michael Barbarita. Michael, how are you, buddy?
Fantastic, Trent. How are you doing?
Man, I'm always good, man. Always
Good.
a pleasure to be hanging with a man from Boston. You're going to hear a little accent today from
Oh
Michael
yeah.
Barbarita. I'll tell you that right now.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
Pleasure,
a
pleasure to
Rhode
be here.
Island native, but lived in Boston all his life. Owns Next Step CFO. Man, you've been through a number of different things in your life, Michael. It's going to be fun to dive into this as a Babson College grad. It's fun to have you on the show and talk a
Thank you.
little bit about small business, the financial aspect, the creative funding, creative growth models, and all the things we're going to do today. So this is going to be super cool. But tell us first, like, what took you to Boston back in the day?
Well, actually, I lived in Rhode Island for the first 4 years of my life, and my father was a television technician for Channel 10, which was one of the big two television stations in Rhode Island. It was Channel 10 and Channel 12. My father worked for Channel 10. And then he had an opportunity to work at the first color television station in Boston, which was Channel 5 in Boston. Today, WCVB. At the time, it was WHDH. And we moved as a result because there was a great opportunity. And, you know, you can't pass up opportunities, right?
That's right. That's right. Man, it's funny when you start thinking about that, like our lifetime, right? Where we start
Right,
talking about first color station,
right,
it's like,
right.
man, like it's just not that long ago how things are
No,
different and people, it's cool a life lived. Is your father still alive?
he's not, unfortunately, but yeah,
Yeah,
no,
mine
yeah,
either. And
yeah.
my father would be, I think, 89 now. And just amazing when you talk to people born in the 30s, right?
Right,
Who
right.
kind of a tail end of that Great Depression part, war. I mean, it's a lot, man. And
It
we
is a
have
lot.
well, and
It is.
we haven't had a shortage of things in our last 20 years, right? Like when we talk about 25 years, we talk about uh 9/11, a major economic crash in '08, a pandemic.
I know.
People are like, man, I understand why 70-year-olds are like, listen, man, I'm done with it. This
I'm
has been
done. Right, right.
a tough last 25 years. And as Next Step CFO, you provide, incremental CFO responsibilities. You work with a lot of small companies growing, and man, you're on the front lines of the challenges that come with every time there's a change in administration. There's a change in
Yeah,
things that happen. It feels like a constant move to adapt. Do
right.
you feel that,
Well,
Michael?
that's a great skill. That's the greatest skill of an entrepreneur, to adapt, be
Yeah.
flexible to change. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. So as we dive into this, I'll tell you for all of our audience, one thing you may not know about Michael was Michael's a 17-year-old playing little high school hoops, got into attorney in the old Boston Garden, the old parquet floor, man. Like, what was that like playing on the hallowed grounds of like, the greats, right? You got all sorts of just players, and of course, the coach. I mean, it's hallowed ground there. And of course, about that time, they were probably pretty flipping good too at that time.
Yeah. Well, it was. Let's see. It's 74. So they actually won a championship in 74. The Celtics. But what was amazing about it, it was an incredible experience. But what was amazing about it is that old parquet floor, that real old parquet floor, was it was above the ice for hockey, and
Yep.
but each board was screwed in. Okay,
Okay.
and so sometimes when you dribbled, you actually had to watch out. If you hit one of those screws the wrong way, that ball's going in a little different direction. It was really strange.
Yeah. there's some home court advantage there because I felt
There
like
is, there
where
is.
all the screws were, man.
That's right. Yeah, the Lakers didn't know where those screws were.
Yeah, that's right. Oh man, and I don't know if you've watched that HBO Showtime, thing with the Lakers, but like that Laker Celtic, just there's a couple just era there of about 3 to 5 years. It was just so good between
I
Magic
know.
and Bird and the whole
Right,
thing. And of course, before that though, of course, you've just had the greats like Auerbach, right? And
right.
Bill Russell. And I mean, it's been a pretty hallowed ground for baseball. I think for basketball, I think that the rest of us have stared in awe of Boston. The fans I feel like have been spoiled. I recall one year, you had Brady out there. So I think one year the Patriots won it, the Red Sox won it,
Right, right,
the Celtics won it, and I think the Bruins like lost in the finals or something. I'm like,
right. Yeah.
like oh my God, it's like you're the most spoiled people of all. And I and I
I
was
know.
I was making T-shirts that said "Dead Last Detroit" because the Pistons were in the bottom, the Tigers were in the bottom, the Lions were in the bottom, and I think the Red Wings were like not in the middle. Like they weren't dead last, right?
Right, right.
But it just felt like, man, it should be great if one of the teams could make a playoff.
Yeah, right, right, right. Oh my God.
Oh,
Yeah, we're spoiled for sure. Absolutely,
for sure. For sure.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
well, let's talk a little bit about winners find a way. On this show, Michael, we talk a lot about, I love the quote, winners when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. And we've watched this happen. We watched this played out in so many different venues, right? From corporate leadership to new economic change to sports teams to you name it, right? Like we're up against odds sometimes, and like things are not going our direction. So I love that quote from the Four Disciplines of Execution. Walk me through a time, Michael, where you were in that challenge. Like, hey, man, this is what I'm going for, but like, nothing's going the way
Right.
you expected. Like the results are in, it's not good. You're gonna have to do something different. Tell us about that time.
Well, I had success first and then I went backwards. So back in 1999, I just sold my second business successfully. My first business sold for multiple seven figures, and I was an egomaniac. I could do no wrong.
Yeah,
After owning and exiting two successful businesses, I thought I had the keys to the business kingdom, if you will, and could succeed at any business. So in all of my glory, all of this glory, I started an outpatient rehabilitation facility called Freedom Therapy Center. Now, in the successful businesses I owned, I always implemented business and financial strategies that my competition wasn't doing. For example, my first business was a ski specialty retail business called Ski Town USA, and we grew the company from 2.5 million to 8 million in 5 years. And a contributing factor to that growth was a strategy called a risk reversal, where the seller in the transaction takes most or all the risk. And one of the problems that the customer had with the ski industry is that you never really knew if the ski they were being sold by some hotshot ski salesperson was the right ski for them until they got up in the mountain and tried it out.
yeah.
So we implemented what we called a ski guarantee. Ski the ski 3 times. You don't like it, bring it back for a brand new pair and keep bringing it back until we get it right. And just so you know, when a pair of skis gets skied on, it depreciates substantially. So my employees and managers thought I was out of my mind. They had
Yeah.
visions of thousands of pair of skis coming back, us losing money. But my mindset was a little different. Number one, I knew my competition wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And number two, all the customer really wanted was a great ski experience. That's all they wanted. And we sold 8,000 pair of skis the first year we implemented it. It was a 25% increase. Only 8 came back. Next year, 11,000
pair,
pair.
eight
8
pair.
pair. 8 pair. Next year, 11,000 pair. 14 came back.
Yeah,
So now fast forward to Freedom Therapy Center, where I must have taken some stupid pills or something, because I did exactly what my competition was doing. I was marketing to doctors to get referrals. I was dropping off chocolate cakes as bribes to front office staffs to get to the doctors. I offered the exact same protocols as my competition was doing, with no risk reversals, no compelling offers, no strategic direction, no creativity, and no differentiation. And as you know, I'm a financial guy, so I know how to manage cash flow. Oh God, we were hemorrhaging cash every
yeah.
month. Every single month, I was going into my savings to fund the operating losses that we were having. And we business owners make these promises to ourselves. Well, I promised myself that I wouldn't put any more money into the company bank account for my savings. And of course, I broke that promise twice. And, thank God I wasn't married. I'd be under the pressure of being told to get a real job. I was staying up nights wondering what I was doing wrong. I was waking up in the middle of the night with cold sweats, worried about cash flow and customers I was losing. There were many Wednesdays there was no money in the company bank account and a payroll due on Friday. Employees were leaving. They saw a sinking ship. Vendors were calling left and right looking for money. There was all kinds of personal liability. And then it just all ended.
And if hold on.
Yeah.
If you don't have this previous exit and what I'm going to call the Bank of Barbarita, right? Which is right. How you're funding everything, right?
Right.
If you don't have this, the new entrepreneur doesn't have this luxury, right? Because they don't have any
right.
coffers,
right.
So
that's
you're
right.
In there, and now you're the guy who totally gets cash and it's hemorrhaging. And I gotta feel like for a person who's in the know, you've watched it so many times with other groups, right? And thinking like, hey, why don't you just fix it? Hey, listen, there's a couple easy solutions. What are you thinking in your mind at this time? Like, hey, we need a solution now, and it's not coming.
Right. Well, I thought I tried everything. In retrospect, I didn't. But when you're in it, it's so different than when you're getting advice. And of course, I was an egomaniac, right? I sold my first business for multiple seven figures. And so I thought I knew what I was doing. But I ended up falling on my face big time.
Yeah.
And I had to close it. What I learned, there's a couple things that I learned. Number one, I learned that the hardest step to take in life is the step after the fall, the next step. And that's why 30 days after I closed Freedom Therapy Center, Next Step CFO was born. That's how I named it. And then the second thing I learned is you just can't keep doing what your competition is doing. You can't message the same way that your competition is messaging, this great service, high quality, lowest price type of stuff.
Yep.
And so that is what I learned. And I also learned that, and that's why I give it, I give advice now, because I also learned that, it's like a lawyer. He's going to hire another lawyer. I learned that the hard way. He's going to hire another lawyer if he's in legal trouble. They don't usually take on their own cases, and if they do, they get into trouble because they're in it.
Yep.
And so that's another tough lesson that I learned. I should have gotten advice, and despite the fact that I was a know-it-all, or thought I was a know-it-all, I should have gotten advice at the time.
Yeah. That's
so
good.
It was a tough lesson. It was a tough lesson.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I like we do tell ourselves these things. Obviously, you didn't keep going to the coffers. You did end up saying, "Hey, I'm not going to keep."
Right. That's enough is enough. Right. But boy, it took a while to cry uncle. It really did. Yeah. It really did.
Like some of that money back. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But because first of all, if you've had, I went backwards. You know what I'm saying? It's not one of those. That's the strange part of the story. I found success, and then I had a total disaster.
Yeah. One of the things that CFOs, it's an interesting deal because it's a trusted advisor, yet one of the things I really love about you, Michael, that probably doesn't come first to mind. I'll just say that when we're talking about business and our structure. People don't look at their CFO usually for strategy. They look like, hey, what's the numbers? Can we or can't we? Give us a yes or no. Like, are we going to hemorrhage cash if we do this? What's going to happen to our line of credit? Tax strategy, definitely listening. Like, hey, what are the tax strategies? What are the implications of this real estate? All those things. So I don't want to say it's never. But you seem like on the forefront of strategy on top of like even what you're talking about here. you're not just talking about cash strategy. You're talking about positioning, marketing, all the things that we're doing inside of our sales, because it's all aligned and works together. Is that fair?
Very fair. And you know, when I was doing research for my book, Powerful Business Strategies, which by the way I give away free on my website, but when I was doing research for the book, I found that a lot of strategies that I found that 95% of business and financial strategies used today are identical to your competitors. And they don't, as a result of that, they don't work.
Yeah.
And so because of that duplication, I've identified a couple of strategies that aren't necessarily novel in any way, shape, or form. It's just, it's very likely that your competition isn't doing it. Like that risk reversal strategy that I talked about when I was in the ski business.
Yeah.
Even after it worked, my competition didn't do it. Even after it worked.
I love that. You reminded me of a time. Your story is a good one, and making money on the ski town. I was reminded of Jimmy Leotold. Jimmy was so Jimmy's son, Jimmy Jr., is Jimmy John's. Okay, so his father founded a radar company. Like back in the 80s, back when we were all buying, like, oh man, we got to get the man, I can't remember some of the brands probably of what some of these, radar enforcement things. You put them in your car and it beep, 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 the police are coming, right? And I remember he talked about like that he was kind of fledglingly going along, doing what everyone else was doing, advertising his radar and all the things. And then he shifted. He put a 100% guarantee. Listen, our radar is so good that I'm going to 100% guarantee you will not get a ticket. And if you do, I'll pay your ticket. That's how good our radar is, right? Like it was like, and that was his guarantee. And so, this is not the internet days, man. Like you got a package, you threw it away and you put your thing in there. And then you're like, I got to find the number of this place. like I got a ticket. And of course, this is also 1980. Tickets are $45. Now they're $450 on a night in jail, right? Like it's a whole different deal. But, I think like you, he had less than 1% of his marketing budget was paying tickets because no one sent their ticket in, right?
I know, right.
His radar blew up, man. He was number one by far. Like everyone's buying him. He's got him in Car and Driver, Sports Illustrated, the same thing. We're 100% guaranteed. Our radar is so good. The police will never suspect you. You're never going to get a ticket. And if you do by chance, we'll pay your ticket.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great idea. Now, minus the fact that our insurance went up and everything else, we're driving like way too fast.
Right.
But it was a unique marketing ploy that just really worked. And like you said, none of his competition was doing it.
Right.
Like, oh my God, you can guarantee that?
Right. And there are two similarities between the risk reversal that we did and the risk reversal that he did. And that is he understood the problem that the customer was having in the industry. If you recall my story, the problem the customer had is they really weren't sure 100% that the ski they were being sold was the right ski for them. The problem in the industry that your story was in was that the problem the customer had is they were getting a lot of tickets, so they could not. Yeah, they wanted to know when the cops were around, and so he capitalized on that problem. He found a solution, he guaranteed it, and away he goes.
Yeah, it's so good. So I love this risk reversal. I think that's a great little, that's a great paradigm right there that really colors it really well. Let's talk a little bit about, as one of the things you talked about, in this challenge that, you faced along the way. And as you look at the strategies, right? You talk a lot about mastering the 80-20 principle,
Yep.
balancing that, work-life balance for entrepreneurs. I mean, this is something that none of us get right because we spend all of our time. And I love the fact that you referenced, a spouse. hey, if I'd have had a spouse, like
Right.
I probably would have never got into this. She'd have been like freaking out. Like and
Right.
most people do. And man, that's a whole nother element of stress, dealing with the family issue and
That's
all
right.
that. And you talk
That's
about that
right.
work-life balance. It's not good often, especially with our entrepreneurs. So let's talk about mastering the 80-20 and how that kind of set you free.
Okay, sure, sure. When I was doing research for my book, what one of the reasons why I wrote the book is because when business owners are having issues, they turn to marketing agencies. And the first thing that the marketing agency does, usually, is they get you on Facebook ads or social media ads, and they run ads. But the way I look at it is it's a little backwards. You've got to get the messaging right first. So, so uh, the way we look at the way we looked at it is that we've looked at the 80-20 rule as 20% of your activities drive 80% of your revenue.
Yeah.
And what we did is we put together what we call the 7-step pathway to profit formula. And it's these 7 steps that drove the 80% of the revenue. And if you focus on these 7 steps and you're not spending any money on marketing or ads yet, okay, because you need to perfect and hone in on these 7 steps. Then you can start putting your ads out there and hiring your marketing agency. People start with the marketing agency first, and that's just in the weeds. They're in the weeds because starting with Facebook ads and not having the right messaging is a problem. So, and that's why a lot of people have problems, and a lot of business owners have problems. And I wanted to straighten out that one component. And so here's that 7-step pathway to profit formula. It starts with leads, not just any leads. You have to get good quality leads. Now, in order to do that, you have to improve your messaging. But the second component is, let me go through the components and I'll talk about how to fix it.
Okay.
So you have leads, the perfect lead. Second is
Hmm.
conversions.
Hmm.
Okay, now conversions means into your sales process, whatever that is. It's not a close, that's the next
Yeah.
step. But conversions is just to get people into your sales process.
Yep.
Closing, your closing rate. Um,
Yep.
Client retention, a very ignored area. A lot of business
Hmm.
owners feel that once they get a client, they get to keep them by default. That's not the case. You have to work on client retention. The
Hmm.
fifth was average dollar per sale. We want to increase the average dollar per sale with each customer. And then frequency of sale. We want to have more sales more often. And then finally, we do need to control our costs, both fixed costs and variable costs.
Hmm.
And so one of the ways that we work on our messaging is we put together this formula called the conversion formula. The formula is designed to convert prospects into whether it's into your sales process or into final customers. And it's a 4-step process, and it needs to be done in the right order, Trent, because if it's not done in the right order, it's like water. Water is H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. If it's 1
Yep.
part hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, you don't have water.
That's right.
So this conversion formula has to be followed in the right order, and it's 4 parts. It starts what we call, and by the way, the other component of this is we found that it back in 1931, it was stated that the key to successful marketing is getting into the mind of the prospect. Well, how do you do that? We're not mind readers. So, but it was also identified that it's based on, to get into the mind of the prospect is based on 2 emotional issues. The problem they have, they don't want, the solution they want, they can't find. And so what we did is we put together what we call the conversion formula. The first step is called captivate, where we captivate the customer with the problem. Now, what we do is we identified problems in the industry that bother, that frustrate prospects and frustrate customers. But you have to identify that problem first. Second is what we call fascinate. We fascinate the customer with our unique solution to that problem. Now, remember, if you remember my story, the problem the customer had was they never really knew for sure if the ski they were being sold was the right ski for them, and it frustrated them. Okay, and our solution was that ski guarantee. Now, the solution doesn't have to be a guarantee. Keep that in mind. That doesn't have to be. So it was captivate is the problem, fascinate's the solution, and then you educate them. All right, and by just giving them more information on, because you've got their attention now. You've captivated them with a problem, you've fascinated them with a solution, and now you educate them. And then finally, you close them with an offer. And that offer needs to be a compelling offer. And we have what we call 5 components to a compelling offer, which I'll get to in a moment. But that conversion formula is what you need to work on in order to perfect your messaging, so that you're not talking about highest quality, lowest price, great service. All of that is what I call I hope so marketing, because what's happening when you tell a prospect, we have great service. Well, I hope so. I wouldn't do business with somebody who doesn't have great service. All right, we're professional. I hope so, because I wouldn't do business with anybody who isn't professional. So that's all jargon. All right, but identifying the problem that the customer has, the solution, and then educate them. And what's interesting about the conversion formula, people buy based on emotion and then back it up logically. The conversion formula is emotional in terms of the problem and solution. Those attack the emotional hot buttons. The educate is the logical. So if a spouse was trying to explain why they bought a product to another spouse, they would use the educate because it's the logical component. And then, of course, the offer, it has to be compelling. And we have 5 components to a compelling offer. And it's best to use one or more of these components. So the first component is scarcity and urgency. So scarcity is we only have 3 left, or we only have 3 time slots available, or whatever it is that you're selling. Scarcity. Urgency is this offer ends on Friday. That's urgency. So scarcity and urgency is one component of a compelling offer. The second one is risk reversal. We talked about that already. The third is adding more value to your product or service. When I was in the frozen cookie dough business, one of the things that we did to add value was we gave away a free convection oven with every opening order. Now, the cost of a convection oven was like $200-something, and the opening order was only like $25 to $75, something like a $50 average. Okay, but we understood the long-term value of a customer, which is an important metric, by the way. And we knew that once the customer bought from us, that they would buy more and more. And the problem the customer had in that industry is that they didn't want to waste valuable oven space baking cookies. When they're a pizza parlor, the primary food product that's in the oven is pizza, or even if they're a sub shop, they heat up subs and stuff, and they cook the meatballs and all that other stuff. So they didn't want to waste valuable oven space with cookies. So that's why we gave them the oven. That was the problem that we solved with the oven.
You were giving away the razor and then charging them for the blades.
There you go. Oh my God. That was the better way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. So so you add more value. Number 4.
Right. Yeah. Number 4 is bundling and packaging. When I was in the ski business, and I don't understand for the life of me why nobody copied this, but when I was in the ski business, everybody sold ski packages: skis, bindings, poles. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. We had that too. But what we also did is we took the most popular ski graphics that were on the skis, and we put together clothing packages: a hat, pant, sweater, parka, and sold those packages. Because packages and bundling is a perception of value. And what we were able to do is, after we sold that popular ski graphic, we took them right to the clothing department and showed them the matching clothing.
Yeah.
And it worked like a charm. We sold, oh my God, thousands of packages of clothing. And so packaging and bundling is another component of a compelling offer. The The fifth is indifference to the outcome. We business owners are too connected to the outcome. We got to separate ourselves from the outcome. Now, I can give you a quick example. So one of the things that I say, and I've kind of given this away, but it's what I say. I say, whether you work with me or someone else, there are 5 steps that you must take in order to properly implement business strategy. That's indifference. Because if you don't show indifference, or if you're too connected to the outcome, the customer picks it up.
Yeah.
And then it's about me and not about them.
Yep.
But when you're indifferent, that's when you both are on the same side of the table locking arms.
Love that. I love that. That's a big one. Let's let me get this one here going here. So here we have your free book, Powerful Business Strategies, at nextstepcfo.net.
Yep.
So for everybody out there, great gift here from Michael today for all of our listeners, a free book. Literally, I just did this. I downloaded it. I have it now on my computer while we were talking. I did this. It's that easy. So Powerful Business Strategies. So you get this all from his experience in all these businesses. And all you have to do is go to nextstepcfo.net. I mean, I don't think I entered my email, by the way.
That's right. Nope. That's right. This is my gift. My gift. Totally unencumbered.
Yeah, you're my ClickFunnels person already hates you, Michael. So
that's right. I'm sure he does. Right.
You just missed a bunch of people for your newsletter.
Right.
Well, I appreciate that you're always educating, putting people first. I mean, it's a great gift. So people go check that out. Let's kind of talk a little bit about that, because when we talk about, the traditional growth models, I'm a growth coach, right? I mean, this is what we do. We help people double their EBITDA in less than 36 months, man. I mean, it's fast. And you were doing that regularly, it's your 2.5 to 8 in such a short time. I mean, this is like 200% plus in 5 years. Like, it's moving very quickly, right? And you look back on that time, Michael, and I mean, talk to us quickly. Like, the quarters fly by, and it's only like, listen, just so everyone gets a perspective of this, he's talking about 5 years. That's 20 quarters. Like, it's nothing. Like, you blink and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, we're 10 quarters into this thing. Like, and you look back, and what's fun, for Michael's business, I really like this, is that, when he starts this journey, he's got a $200,000 revenue a month, right? And then, at the end of this journey, you're talking about, like, literally well over $500,000 a month, in revenue, right?
Yep.
And so it's oh, hey, remember when we were like button up against that 200 trying to make it? Now we're like 600,000-700,000 some months, and we do these big months and high season, right? And walk us through a little bit of that journey. But when you say that, I want to hear a little on the journey, and then I want to hear a little bit of breaking free from the tradition.
Well, yeah. So certainly our risk reversal broke free, and the way we packaged our clothing, we always were looking to do things differently than our competition was doing. And like I said, I took stupid pills when I owned Freedom Therapist, and it was like crazy. So, but one of the things that worked very well as well is, and at the time there was no email because I'm real old. So, but we used to do a lot of direct mail to rejuvenate former customers. And that's something that you don't need to do direct email today. You do the email, but regular email, so it doesn't cost. But we used to quite often rejuvenate former customers with our mailings. And I think drip campaigns and those types of things are very critical today to do in order to keep updating. Because what I found when I wrote my book, Trent, was that only 1 to 3% of any buyers in any market are ready to buy now. The other 97 to 99% are on the buyer's journey. And you need to nurture that journey. And that journey can last anywhere from 15 minutes to 15 years. I recently got a client that I first talked to back in 2010. And so, but he was on the journey. That was a long journey, but he was on the journey. But like I said, 15 minutes to 15 years. You just never know when they're going to convert. And so by keeping them updated and making your business the one that's in their face, that's where the magic happens. And what I've learned is that if you keep people updated in a drip campaign using the conversion formula, you reduce the touch points before they become a client. And so that's really, and I learned that when I was in the ski business, because I was able to, generate a lot of business from a customer list. I mean, it was just, when we measured it, we averaged, per customer that bought in a year, they would buy 5 and 6 times during that same year.
Yeah.
That's a frequency of sale. And all of these points, by the way, in the 7-step pathway to profit formula, they compound on each other. You increase the number of leads you get, you increase your conversion rate just slightly, little tweaks to convert the closing rate, you increase your client retention just a little bit, you increase your average dollar per sale. These compound on each other.
Oh, yeah, massively. We do a lot in our work with retention rate because, man, we know the acquisition cost of a new client is expensive. And you're talking about back in the cookie business, man. You're acquiring, after all that marketing, you're giving them a $200 convection oven, right? Like you're talking about, hey, I'm going to need 8 more $25 sales to even be at my break even point, in addition to the product. So you probably got 10 sales to go break even, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yes. So then, man, like you're playing the long game on this thing, and retention rate to us has been the absolute game changer of communicating with your client list, because we have, established businesses that call us, right? Like that's who they are. They have to change some things. They're not winning with the team they have today, and they're finding out these little things. And holistically, it's a lot of little things. It's a lot of small incremental, and I love the hidden power of small change, because small change can have massive impact.
Absolutely. Oh, God, yes.
Talk to some of us about some of that transforming, like you're seeing through some of the other incremental improvements you've seen across some of these things that have, the people, it's the compound interest, right? Like if you look at like your millions of dollars and you go, hey, do it at 6%. Okay, now do it at 7 over 30 years. It's a lot of money. It's only 1%, right? It's a lot of money.
But so if you focus on just increasing your conversion rates a few percent and your closing rate a few percent, just those two things, very small little incremental changes, they compound. And I just went through 2 of the 7 steps, and I just increased 2 of them. So when you increase 7 of them, it gets absolutely crazy. Just small 2-3% changes in 7 areas, it explodes.
I love the story of Costco going up against Sam's Club, where I remember like I'm thinking, who in their right mind thinks let's go up against the Walton family right now? Like, Walmart is hitting on all cylinders. Of course, I'm a Michigan kid. Frederick Meyer had established himself pretty well in that little region, but he was a small, like, district region type player. He wasn't national, right? And so when Costco goes up, the average ticket per sale exiting the building was exactly $100 more on a Costco ticket than a Sam's Club ticket. He was going after buyers that were appealing to that audience. more electronics. This is what everybody's getting into. Oh, I need an iPod. I need a this. I need a that. And they were buying that $300, $500 ticket. So it was like, man. And if you're anything like me, I go into Costco for $75 of groceries and I walk out $300 light. You know, like what just happened? Like, you know, they've got me, man. They've got me, right? But they determined that through that incremental, and it was like, hey, we have gone hard at what the buyers want, and they want more electronics. They want to buy their ski gloves for the trip. They want to buy these things that, you know, they can get and they'll use otherwise, and it serves their lifestyle. And man, they did a really good job of that. And then that price point, of course, was good enough that you felt good about buying more than one item, of course. So
right.
such a great thing. And when we go, let's talk and finish here, because I know we got to run here, but be respectful of your time. I want to talk about beyond the numbers. I mean, you're a numbers guy. Man, I have the CFO on here. We haven't even talked numbers yet.
No.
Like, you know, it's crazy, right? So, but let's talk beyond the numbers. Emotional intelligence, strategic messaging, influence marketing, leadership. These kind of categories that are pretty important swim lanes. And for me, you know, if you let one of those lanes just kind of neglect it, and that lane goes green with algae, it's not long before the whole pool is going to be affected, right? These are really important swim lanes here. And of course, we all recognize the numbers an important swim lane, and we don't want to ignore that lane because that's a super important lane. But these other lanes you see as equally important, right? Beyond the numbers. Talk us through what you've seen there and some of the things about how you've repaired those in the past.
Well, I think once again, it's through strategy. You know, I have a client, they're struggling. I look at their marketing, it's I hope so marketing. And so then at that point in time, we create that use of the conversion formula. By the way, the first two steps of the conversion formula, the captivate and fascinate, is what we call a position of market dominance. Because if you nail those two components, you can utilize it in any type of communication to a customer, including networking if you want. So, but what we find the vast majority of the time, Trent, is the messaging is off, way off. And it's exactly, you could take this prospect that I have, and you can take 3 or 4, 5 of their competitors, and you think you're reading the same thing. I mean, you know, great service, high quality, most professional, all of that. And so to me, it's really getting the messaging right before you blow your brains out on the social media ads.
Yeah.
You know, because if you hire a marketing agency, that's the first place they go, pretty much. You know, they might do some email campaigns too, but for the most part, it's social media ads.
Yeah, I think it's what probably small business is most guilty of, right? Ready, fire, aim. Like we're just ready. Let's do this thing. Let's start firing bullets across social media with like no aim.
Right.
Like we're just and I don't know what I'm hitting. I don't know if I'm hitting anything actually.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And it's brutal. And but it's probably what I see a lot of small companies guilty of, right?
It's prevalent. It's prevalent.
They haven't taken that time.
Right.
You know,
yeah, it's very prevalent.
For one of the things that I think is so important in your role, and I love the fact, you know, we had in EO, we had Andy Fastow come in and talk about ethics, you know, as a CFO of Enron who went into trouble. You know, a lot of people have really pointed to this guy as a major, you know, challenge of Enron's fall. Well, you know, when you talk about strategy, this guy is an expert strategist. I mean, who do you know that was a CFO in a Fortune 10 company out of the Ivy League at 27 years old?
Oh God.
Right? I mean, this guy's taken on the world, and you know, this guy's still got, you know, he's still not shaving every day. I mean, you're bringing on a guy fast and like, so one doesn't get there without being a pretty smart dude, man, having a lot of strategy. And it's amazing hearing his story. It was very interesting how much went into their strategy of, shell companies and how they were
Right.
doing it all stay legal. This was
Yes,
all
it was. I know. It
illegal
was
winning,
complex. It was very complex, but yes, it was.
extremely complex
Oh
because
God.
in order to be legal and not cross a line, it was the only way it could be. There was nothing simple about doing it to stay legal, but the
Right.
loopholes in
Right.
law provided that complexity to make it out. Well, was it the right thing to do? That's the big ethics question, right? But like,
Right. 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 Right.
um, man,
Right.
it was amazing to talk about the complexity of what was going on back then.
Really
And
was.
as we look at this, the CFO, we're diving all the time into the numbers tell the story, right? I mean, that's the key thing for me, Michael, is that the numbers don't lie. And as long as we can understand this P&L and the balance sheet, we've got a very good idea of what our numbers are. And, probably the small business um, overlooks, the cash flow and probably estimates the value of time, right?
Right.
And how
Right.
that can work for you. So what have you seen? If you got people out there right now who are up against this small business world, they're battling it. What do you tell them right now from your CFO seat where they've run into these challenges, they're facing it? You've got some great stuff in your book for your list. What are you telling them right now when they're going through the adversity part of it?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I try to explain that they need to know their numbers, but here it is. I've got it. Business owners hate those numbers. They hate the numbers and the data. Okay,
Yeah.
they really do. So I've narrowed it down to what I call the vital five. It's just five numbers that you need to know at all times. And if you just understand these five numbers, you're gonna you're gonna be three-quarters of the way there. And it's so sales, gross profit percent, probably the
Mm,
most important, your net profit, and your current cash balance. If you keep those numbers at top of the mind, burn in your memory at all times, you will make better business decisions just based on that. And I
mm.
think and that's something that when business owners are down and out, that's one thing that I give them right away, so that they really get a grasp of their business without having to know the P&L, without having to know the balance sheet. I take care of that. I take care of that.
Yeah.
And without having them to know the forecast, because I do that. Forecasting is a very important part of what I do as well. To
Sure.
everything's forward looking, forward looking. So that's the other thing. Another thing that picks them up is when you do a forecast. Not that it necessarily shows that it's going to be a clear sailing ahead, but at least they know. They know
Yeah.
what the pitfalls are, and then we talk about how to dodge the pitfalls that are coming.
Hmm.
And the confidence level goes up, the stress level goes down.
Yeah. That's so important, right? To have that vision of the future and honesty behind that vision, not the rose-colored glasses. Like, well, hey, we're 2.5. Of course, we're going to do 10 million next year. Like, whoa. Who's
Right,
forecasting that? Like,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
see it. You see it with people.
That's
Let me
right.
ask you the question real quick to end. When you go into a new client, I go into new clients all the time, and I ask them a lot of questions. How many of your new clients know the vital five right off the top of their mark and can pull that number for you quickly?
You faded out a little bit, Trent. I didn't
Oh,
get that
sorry.
whole question. Yeah, go ahead.
When you pick up a new client and you ask them how many know their vital five numbers the first day you walk in the door?
Zero.
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 Never. There's no one ever who has that
No.
number.
No. When I'm in a room of business owners, less than half. When I ask them if they see their P&L once a month, less than half the room raises their hand. If I ask them balance sheet once a month, less than 10% raise their hand. And if I ask how many people look at their cash flow statement once a month, I'm if there's There might be a miracle for one person to raise their hand, and that's cash flow, the lifeblood of a business.
That's crazy, right?
But
That
their
is
Vital Five,
crazy.
they're out. They're out on their Vital Five.
Yeah. Okay. Man, this has been so enlightening. This has been so good, Michael. Listen, for everybody on Winners Find a Way, first of all, Michael Barbarita, thank you so much for joining us from Next Step CFO. He's offered a wonderful gift. You can go to nextstepcfo.net and you can download powerful business strategies. Michael has just filled us with great lists of all these things today. Incredible, just amazing things here as we're talking about what we're looking for, the conversion formula, 4-step, 5 components to closing offer, your big 7, right, which is amazing, and then of course the Vital 5. I mean, if you're a business owner today and you're not walking away with a bunch of notes, I don't think you're listening. Hey man, you better tear up that ear hole, man. Like 2 eye, 1 mouth, 2 ears, right? Listen and download that book. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on Winners Find a Way. Super fun
Thank
to
you for
have
having
you
me,
as
Trent.
always.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and for everybody else, go out and get that, and want to know more, Michael, where can they find you? How can they reach out to you?
So nextstepcfo.net /contact. If I love to do a book interview with people. Business is always changing. So we're writing an additional edition of our book, with the uncertain times that we live in, high interest rates, high, inflation. I want to make sure, we know our strategies work. We just need some industry information to confirm what we already know. And so if they go to nextstepcfo.net /contact, fill out the contact form, put book interview in the message, send it off. We're happy to interview them for the next edition of our book.
Love that. That's cool, man. There you go. You can get featured in Michael's next book, which would be incredible. So right. For everybody else, thank you for joining us. Winners Find a Way every Thursday morning live, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And of course, we drop our big podcast on all the major networks, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, everywhere else on Friday morning. So look for that every week. And for everybody out there, we'll see you next time. Winners Find a Way.